At 6 o'clock, I want to welcome everybody here this evening. We've got a great board before us. Going to learn everything that we have to tell you about the road project that we're going to be doing on the east side. We're circulating a pad. I appreciate if everybody could put their name on it and their address, just so that we can know who is here. It helps us as far as follow-up questions are concerned. There's going to be opportunity for questions. If you could wait until the end of each section, that would be greatly appreciated. I'll control the microphone and bring it to you. If you have a really burning question and it's got to be answered immediately, please signal and I will bring you the microphone. I'll probably just go to the back of the room and hold the microphone there, and if you raise your hand, we'll take care of it. Thank you all for arranging for rain this evening. I hope that we're going to get a little bit more. We'll arrange for some more town meetings if it's going to help us to have rain more often. Thank you all very much for coming out, though, and we look forward to answering your questions. Good to be with you. Bill?
Well, let me introduce myself. Most of you know me. I'm Bill Hill, the city manager. I've been here about 9 years. Let me introduce you to my team here. Our Public Works Director, Brandon Peterson, and Brandon, you've been here, about 7 years?
Yes, sir.
I think that. And Chris Otto, our city engineer, representing what used to be KFW Engineering, now be renamed Collier Engineering, which is a statewide engineering firm. Over to my right is D&D Contractors, and starting with the owner, Kelly Dickens. He is the owner and CEO of D&D Contractors. They were the contractors who won the bid associated with that, and his project manager, Gerald McLeod. Sorry about that. Anyway, that's our team here. What we'll do is we've got a presentation. We'll go through. There's questions and answering available. Also online is CPS. So we've got a CPS representative that's joined us by Zoom. There'll be an opportunity for him to give an update. And at the end of that, there'll be questions and answers, and then we'll break out. So we'll have D&D Contractors over on a table. We'll have our Public Works on the table. We'll have our city engineer on the table. The city engineer's got 2 sets of complete plans. You can take a look at what's happening in front of your residence. You can ask questions about your driveway, your mailbox, how things are going to roll from there. And if we can't answer them, we'll get back to you from there. And so anyway, I think that is where we are. Okay, I got a slide here. It says the contract has been awarded to D&D Construction. There's the owner and the project manager. Why don't we give you an opportunity just to tell you a little bit, tell everyone a little bit about your company and your team and how you operate.
My name is Kelly Dickens. I'm the owner of D&D Contractors. We celebrate 28 years of street reconstruction June 5th, so we're excited about that. We're honored to be a part of rebuilding some streets for you guys. We take our residents and the importance of getting you in and out safely, very important. So we have implemented several things to try to help mitigate any delays getting home, any problems getting home. We have an on-site superintendent, which is Paul Boyd over here. We use QR codes on door hangers, and on our door hangers, we also have a tear-off business card that'll have their cell phone numbers. So you'll have access to any of my team 24/7. If you have any problems and you can't get a hold of them, I'm readily available as well. Without getting into specific things about the project, I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to getting to rebuild some streets that y'all can be proud of. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, and we're going to go through the slides. Was there an agenda slide? Did I miss that? Okay. So anyway, we've done the introductions. As you can see, Mayor Warner has given the welcome. We'll do the presentation, and then we'll go from there. Okay, next slide. Okay, so again, we have a lot of streets in the city that are in different degrees of repair and maintenance. The Phase 1 Alpha is Bent Oak, Chimney Rock, Cliffside, Ingate, Fawn, Saddle Tree, Shavano Wagon Trail Windmill, and then we have 5 cul-de-sacs on the west side of Northwest Military Highway, which we're going to address. We've also are in the works for planning on reconstructing De Zavala with a drainage project and a portion of Post Oak Way, as well as probably Cinnamon Oak as well. And so we're looking at that entrance into Shavano Creek. But that'll be a subsequent phase that we're doing. So today's meeting is focused in on phase 1 alpha, and then we move to those projects as we move in the future. Next slide. This kind of shows you where we are. Highlighted on the top of your screen there, you can see Northwest Military Highway going approximately halfway through the screen, and then you've got those streets that are kind of dark. Those, you all know those streets. That's the old original Shavano Park, and that's approximately 6 miles of reconstruction that we're going to be doing. Next slide. Okay, I'll kind of open on this, and then I'll let Kelly expand any more if you need to, or Gerald. Construction is expected to begin and start on 5 June on Wagon Trail. And then they are going to work Wagon Trail through July and then move their crews to Ingate, and then they'll finish portion of Ingate and then move crews to Fawn. We don't have the exact days listed here. We have them available, but in general, let me turn it over to Kelly and Gerald, and they can kind of say, here's how we're going to operate that, because...
Do you want to take that, or do you want me to take it?
Okay, so again, I'm Gerald McLeod. I'm the project manager for D&D. The way the schedule is going to work typically is we will come in and pulverize the roadway and restabilize the subgrade and get black base, which is a type B asphalt, down on the subgrade. And then we'll move on to our next street and start the process over. So that's why there's an overlap. When we move off, get the asphalt down and move off to the next street to start the process, our concrete crews will come in and they'll start doing curbs and driveways behind us. So there'll be an overlap in the schedule. But that's kind of it in a nutshell, how that's why they overlap like that.
And they've given us a detailed schedule. For example, the targeted start date for Ingate is 10 July. And but we didn't put all the dates here because we know as soon as you put the first blade in the ground, all that's going to potentially change a day or two or a week or so. But you can get the idea that Ingate starts in July. The 300 block of Fawn starts in July. Shavano Drive starts in August. Chimney Rock then starts in August. 100, 200 block of Fawn in sometime in October. Windmill sometime in November. Bent Oak sometime in December. Cliffside will not begin until probably January. And that's assuming that everything in their schedule goes as to plans. And Saddle Tree, looks like that's the last one that's planned, begins maybe in March, April, and then they shift over to the other side and do the cul-de-sacs, which their current schedule is May of 2024. So they had 18 months to complete it. By my math, they intend to complete it in 9 months. Is that about right?
14 months, yes.
14 months, okay.
And I can elaborate a little bit on our sequence. So the risky part of road construction, as soon as we rip that road out and then you're driving on dirt, so what we've done is we've changed the sequencing up a little bit. Typically, we would prepare subgrade, our curb guys would come through, we would finish our concrete work, and then we would place our asphalt. Since this job is it's actually pretty well designed, it has a section of ATB, which is a heavy coarse asphalt, rather than flex base. So what we decided to do is we are going to cut subgrade, establish subgrade, modify the subgrade with lime or cement, whichever the city ends up going with. That modification period takes about 4 to 6 days per section to prepare and to modify that subgrade. Well, as soon as we get that subgrade prepared, we can put that first lift of asphalt on. Once we do that, we'll trench through that asphalt, and then we'll put the curbs in. We've made a couple of changes to the schedule so that it gets y'all back on asphalt sooner and you're not driving on a dirt or a modified subgrade. It gets you right back on asphalt. Once we get the curbs and driveways in, then we come back with the final lift of asphalt, which is the slick, fine, smooth finish, which is the type D. And then we'll pave all the jobs at the same time. And when we turn the job over to the city, it'll have all new asphalt on all the streets. But we've changed the sequencing up a little bit so that we don't have you running on dirt, because as soon as that happens, we're going to get a rainstorm or something like that. And we're trying to mitigate and minimize that exposure time.
So I think what I heard you say was you're going to go through the sequence of all this, and at the end, you're going to put a final coat on all the roads in kind of fast order, in something like that. And how thick will that final coat be? An inch, 2 inches,
Well, it's 3 inches, right?
3 inches?
Yeah, I think it's 3 inches is the.
So
final
after they
coat.
finish Wagon Trail, it'll be 3 inches
Low.
lower than what's going to be at the end of the project. And that what you're going to do is you're going to do that 3 inches level, then you're going to put the curbs in, and then when you put your final coat of asphalt, that 3 inches, your curbs will already be established. Is
That's
that correct? Okay. Yes, Susan? Sure. If it's a burning question, we go ahead. I can't hear you. I have tinker's ears. Too many months at tank range.
So in the period of time between when you have that 3-inch lip before you put in the final asphalt, like getting into your driveway, will you be driving up over a 3-inch lip to get into your driveway all the time if it's a 3-inch depression, but the cement is the same height? That's what the final will be?
Yes, so good question. And no, ma'am, we will temporarily ramp so that you don't have to jump a 3-inch lip. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes, yes, sir?
I know, Stephen, today when we're walking, you know, the trash trucks have to come by 3 times a week because you have the recycler truck 1 time and then the regular trash 2 times. And you can see that dip right next to near the end of the road. And probably part of that is because of there's nothing holding it in, right? I mean, it's pressing and pressing, it pushes the road out. But do you have some way of keeping that where it's all level? We're not going to always see that carved road, that gutter that goes up and down the streets all over the place.
So I believe you're talking about to the structural integrity of the street?
Yes,
So
exactly.
the new pavement design you're getting should handle all heavy traffic like that with no problem. You shouldn't have that problem with your new street.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
So in that initial, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
In the initial 6 days or whatever you mentioned, when you're taking the road up and building the aggregate, I've been told that there could be a scenario where we can't get to our houses or can't leave our houses.
That's not necessarily so. The street's not wide enough for us to do halves. It just doesn't, the footprint doesn't accommodate the workload and traffic. So we have to do the street all at one time. There is a time where the milling machine is coming through and it's fluffing the lime or the cement. Our guys work with getting residents in and out all the time. They're very cooperative and they'll try to make sure that you get in and out. We will give you notification when that happens. If we can avoid any unnecessary travel, that's great. However, we typically plan our workload to be after 9 and then try to have it back open by 4 o'clock so that we mitigate a lot of those issues because most people leave early and then come home in the afternoon. But if there is a case where that is, we have a shuttle service where we run people back and forth.
And where would we park if that were the case?
It would have to be off of the footprint of the job further down. But we don't anticipate any of that as of yet.
And
would be given plenty of notice for that to be the case.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Just a note for everybody, Curtis is, our assistant city manager, is putting this on tape, the equivalent. We're capturing it digitally. You'll be able to watch it again in your home. As far as the slides that are up, I saw a lot of people taking pictures. If you want to watch it on YouTube, he's also capturing the YouTube images when people are talking and Bill and the other speakers are making references to them. So you don't have to have your own pictures. We will be providing you your own pictures if you go to YouTube.
I got a question. We're on Ingate Lane. We're in a pocket. So how's that going to work when you get in there? We're going to be trapped in there.
No, sir, nobody will be trapped. We have to keep a street accessible for emergency services, so it will always have a way to get in and out.
Okay. That's my only question.
Yes, sir.
And unless you have a really piercing question, if you can wait until we finish off each section, that would help us get a little bit farther. They may actually be answering your questions.
Next
before
slide. Okay, this is CPS Energy gas service update. And do we have Dee's on the line?
Good evening, everyone. I apologize I couldn't make it. I'm the only one at home. I got my 2 children here, so. But anyway, to give this CPS Energy gas service update, we're replacing all aging steel gas service lines in the project area. I'm sorry. You might have already seen us working. Miller Brothers is out there. They're working on Wagon Trail, and they're working on Inlet. They will start on Ingate Lane sometime this week. We're also going to be extending the mains on Cliffside and on Shavano Road. There's 2 little sections. We'll be putting gas service stubs to residents. If you're along the main and you don't have gas service currently, you'll get a gas service stub. So it's up to you if you actually want to apply for gas service at that point. The techniques that we're using slip line, also known as an insertion technique, and that's for houses that are within 75 feet of the gas main. Most of these houses are probably 200 to 300 feet away from the gas main. So in that scenario, we're going to open trench. Some of these will be done by boring, depending on the distance and what obstacles are in the customer's yard. So more than likely, for sure, they're going to get with you to see exactly what you have in your yard and how you want the gas service line to be installed before they go forth with that. And I believe we have approximately 94 gas service lines in the area, of which 32 have been completed. So we are right on schedule as far as construction goes. Here's a kind of a general map of the area. If you see the green areas are where there is a gas main currently. The red areas is where you don't have gas service, or you don't have a gas main, so you won't have a gas service line either. The yellow is where we are going to actually extend the main. So you'll see a little section there on Shavano Drive, and you'll see a section at the top right corner on Cliffside. So if you're in those sections, you'll definitely get a gas stub. So if you decide to apply for gas service later on, you can have gas service.
Okay.
Yeah, go back real quick. So I would just say CPS and Miller's Brothers, we're learning as we go. And, the first couple, it looks like a war zone out there actually on Wagon Trail. But I've been very pleased with their connection with the customers and cooperation working with them. And we had one yard, which we hit septic tanks, we hit We had septic lines, we had irrigation lines, we had electrical lines, we even hit part of the water main as it was going from the water softener exterior, et cetera. And they were able to bring in a licensed plumber to help sort through all that stuff. And it does help to work with the contractors there to try to identify in advance where some of these existing conflicts might be. And of course, if you're not getting any satisfaction from them and you feel like you're not getting short, Brandon and I are easily accessible, and we work pretty well with CPS and Miller Brothers from that standpoint. And we do want to make it right. I mean, when they dig up your yard, it's going to be hard to bring it back to the same exact grass, et cetera. A lot of it is being sodded. Some of it may be seeded, and I think they're working with the homeowners on how that all works. I'm not exactly sure, but we want to make sure that you're satisfied at the end of the day. It's going to get ugly when you have to cut through yards, and you're taking heavy machinery, but we'll do the best we can. And they seem to, CPS is great. Miller's Brothers seem to be doing a pretty good job. But if you're not thinking that, let me know, let Brandon know, and we'll work with the team. Any other questions on CPS?
Robert on Wagon Trail. They've knocked down a couple of trees or torn some trees down with their heavy machinery. Are any of those trees going to be repaired or fixed or replaced or cleaned up?
So you're saying that on your property there were some trees that were damaged?
Yeah, some crepe myrtles along the fence line where they were trying to get the backhoe
Yeah,
in there.
let's
knocked
get
out
your
some stuff.
address and we can look at that.
Okay.
What is your address?
128 Wagon Trail.
128 Wagon Trail.
On behalf of a family, I think they're at 410 or 408 Cliffside. I just want to understand. It's red. Does that mean you're at this particular time you're not going to attempt to extend the gas main up to those houses?
Yeah, that's the current plan. They're not going to extend. And Dees is on the line here, but it's feasible that could happen. But it's essentially, I believe, Dees, why don't you explain if you're 4 houses down from an existing gas line, you want to extend it, how does that work, and how much of the cost is the customer responsible for paying?
So if they live, let's say 4 houses down, they want to extend the main, they're going to have to pay to extend that main if they're the only one that applies to, for gas service. So that one customer will be on the hook for all the costs. And I know that's expensive. So my supervisor has said if we can get enough applications in from residents along Cliffside, he'll consider it. So if we can get everyone that wants gas service on Cliffside to turn those in within the next couple of weeks, I'll get it to my supervisor and I'll do my best to try to make something happen.
Okay, I'll pass that on to her, that if she wants to try to head up some kind of a neighborhood petition or signing, if they're interested, I'll do that. Thank you.
And Susan, if, from the city staff standpoint, if we have someone that's leading an effort to that and anything we can do to facilitate that, we'll work through that. I mean, I know that's kind of common practice. My dad bought a ranch that didn't have electricity to it, and then he was responsible for bringing electricity up to that point. And then that particular utility company, within 3 years, if his neighbor then extended it, his neighbor was actually responsible for half of the cost of my dad's original. And that's kind of how that works. So it's much better when you have cost sharing to move those utility lines and extend them further.
Do you think that, how we have the text services that come out for those who have opted for that? Do you think the city could put out like a little notice in the next couple of days that, hey, if you live on such and such cliffside. If you're interested, now's the time to get with your neighbors and talk to them and turn that in, because we're in a deciding point, maybe. Just a thought.
I mean, I think we could put together a letter and say, if you're interested in gas, it's a cost-sharing thing. At least identify yourself, and then we'll see if there's enough synergy associated with that.
Starting at whatever number that is, past Bent Oak, I don't know, that's past the Chumley's house, but just identify the numbers so the people who get that letter could be more cognizant of what the numbers are.
If you could include Fawn Drive on that as well, I think.
Yeah, we could do that. It's the same thing with Windmill.
Yeah, and if we could get all those applications directly to me, that would be great. The city could collect them and just get them back to me, and I'll get them over to my supervisor. And like I said, I'll try to make something happen while this project's going on.
Okay, great. Any other questions for CPS Gas?
Yeah, I'm at 202 Fawn. I'm an existing gas user. Will you be retrofitting my line at my house?
Did you hear that, Dees?
If she's a current, if she currently has gas service, yes. If it's some of the service lines there are already plastic. If yours happens to be steel, will be replacing that line. So they'll go by your house, see the size of your house, if you have any plans, like for a pool heater, tankless water heater, things of that nature, and see if you'd like to keep the current size of your gas, diameter of your gas line, or you could even go up to 1.25 inches if you have plans for more gas usage. So yes, the chances are we will be replacing your gas line.
But will you make it smaller, or will it be replaced with the existing diameter that I have now?
No, so basically that's what I was saying. We're going to determine what you have, like if you have a tankless water heater, if you have a pool heater, things of that nature. If you'd like to keep your current diameter of your service line, they will do that. So let's say you have 1-inch gas service and you want to keep that, they will replace it with a poly 1-inch gas service. If you want to go up to 1.25 inches, they can also do that.
Okay, also I'm a heavily treed lot. How will you handle my trees?
So if you have a yard that has a lot of trees and, a lot of flat work, flowers, things of that nature that you don't want disturbed, and it's a long distance, chances are they're going to bore it, which means they're going to drill underground. They have 2 bore rigs out there right now, from what I understand, and they're working pretty well. So they'll go underneath all that.
My name's Michelle Rickman, and I'm at 201 Fawn, and this does not concern my house, but I drove down Wagon Trail on Saturday, and it looked like a war zone. And I don't know what that's the result of, but if that's what the rest of our city's going to look like, we should all be very afraid, because it looked awful.
No, the idea is for gas to go in first, because all this is going to be reconstructed. So it looks like that now, but it's not going to stay like that. So we get in first, we do what we have to do. It's going to look like that when gas service is done. So once we're done with what we have to do, D&D is going to come behind us and do the reconstruction and make sure everything looks great.
But what that gentleman was saying over there, you cannot reconstruct a huge tree. And when the Public Works Department was putting in our new meters, they were so careful about not disturbing trees, not disturbing roots. And so if they could be careful, I don't understand why City Public Service Board and their contractors cannot be as careful as our city's Public Works Department was.
Yes, ma'am. I'll pass that along to Miller Brothers and we'll do all we can to try and preserve exactly what's there from this point forward. Sometimes it's feasible and sometimes it's not, but we'll do all we can to try and preserve the landscape that's there. And I'll pass the message along.
Yeah, quick question. Is the replacement of gas service mandatory? Can people keep the lines that they have right now? Is that an option?
They can, but I would not recommend it because it's steel, and steel rust is going to start to leak. And if the customer opts not to do anything now and it starts leaking down the road, then they're going to be on the hook for that. So it's best to go ahead and get it done now.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide. Okay, Brandon.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So as of right now, the water crews have gone through and completed all of the long services, which is basically any one's house that is on the opposite side of the road as the water main is. We've completed all of those as of the first part of April. Now you have probably seen crews out working on the water main crossings. We have 17 water main crossings. Of those, we've got 9 of them completed. So we're trying to move along as fast as possible so that way we can be out of the way of D&D contractors so they can go ahead and get started. All of the water lines that are under the road, whether it was a service line or the water mains, we've put them all inside of a casing so that way if there is a leak in the future, we do not have to tear up the brand new roads. We can basically dig holes on the 2 sides of the road, pull the line out, slide a new one in, and tie it back together on the 2 sides. So that way we can preserve the roads as long as possible. Next slide.
Okay, so the contractor is going to have some information and programs, and he's kind of talked about that, although I'll let him talk a little bit more about that. D&D does a good job. The city has got a specific TextMyGov program in which we've got a QR code, and you can sign up for that project, and you'll get push notifications associated with that, and you can ask questions and do various things like that. And I'll pass it to Curtis, who can expand a little bit about how we're going to operate that. He runs that program.
So my name's Curtis Leith. I'm Assistant City Manager. It's a very simple. You can either text COSP Road to make a new message to 91896, and you can text COSP Road, or you can just scan the QR code. It will auto-fill in all that for you. You just hit send. It asks you sure you want to sign up. You don't have to create an account. You don't have to download an app. You don't have to remember a password. And we do not spam you at all, I promise. We try to use this infrequently and keep the messages pertinent, short, to the point for you, the information you need to know. But this will be the primary, quickest way that we're going to city will get communications out. And sounds like D&D has something very similar that they're going to be having as well with their QR codes and messaging system as well. So,
Okay, so Curtis, if people take out their phones right now and get it enlarged to where they can see that QR code that's up there, the little green bubble, that they can tap on that, and then after they've tapped on it, it goes to their text message, and then they can push send, and they will be registered for the city communications on the road. Is that correct?
the system will ask them to confirm that you want to be signed up, and it will autofill in yes, or you have an option. Android autofills in that you can put in back yes, boom, and you're signed up. And there's nothing else you have to do.
And do you have a
There is on an easel, there is a poster board with all the QR codes that you can take your phone up physically. It's out there, and you can scan and join any of the notification groups.
It's actually what the city is going to be moving to more effectively, and you can pick which group you want, and then the messages will be driven that way. Okay. Next slide. All right, Chris.
So if you've been to the previous town hall, you've already seen this. This is the road that we have designed and what D&D is going to be building. We are putting in an 8-inch, what we call a header curb or a ribbon curb. It'll be flush with the street. And then we'll be putting in 4.5 inches of the type B asphalt and then 3 inches of type D on top of it. Type D is what you're used to seeing. It's a smoother asphalt. And then underneath that, we're going to have treated subgrade. It may be lime treated or it may be cement treated. We're still working through that. The idea behind putting that curb in there, you've probably seen the edge of pavement tends to break off. You know, there's some areas of town where the pavement is narrower because you just have edge failure. With that curb, it'll prevent that edge failure from occurring. On the left-hand side there, you can see edge failure where the pavement is just falling off. And then on the right, they have a ribbon curb. It just helps hold the street together better. So your mail trucks and your garbage trucks aren't tearing up the edge of the road as much. We are going back with 20.67 feet of pavement. That is currently the average of what is out there. Because we are in the Edwards Aquifer Recharge Zone, we are limited what we can do as far as adding impervious cover. And so we matched existing as much as we could to avoid having to go through TCEQ permitting. And the road will generally be centered in the right-of-way. There are some areas of town where the road is not currently centered in the right-of-way. It's kind of offset to one side or the other. We're going to keep that offset where it exists because we're trying to protect trees. As of right now, all trees are going to be preserved. We don't call any trees to be removed. There may be some tree trimming that is required to get the heavy equipment in and out without damaging the trees. It's better to cut them than it is to break them. So, you know, there'll probably be some tree trimming, but it will not be significant. Again, because of the Edwards Aquifer requirements to maintain impervious cover, we are not adding sidewalks or bike lanes. It's basically going to look the same way it does today, except nicer pavement with a ribbon curb. The driveways are going to be partially reconstructed. We are matching the existing grade as much as possible. There are some areas where there was ponding water or the road was blocking water from being able to cross the street. We are correcting those. We're not doing a lot of drainage work on this project because we wanted to focus on the roads and getting as much pavement on the ground as we possibly could. But we are doing some drainage, some bar ditches that have filled in over time. We're going to reestablish those bar ditches. And in doing all of that, driveways are going to require adjustment. Most of the adjustments are going to be very minimal. You probably won't even notice a difference, but you will be getting a new driveway approach from the curb to the right-of-way line. There are 9 properties within the project where we are going to have to penetrate into private property to reconstruct the driveways. And I believe we already have driveway plats for all of those. So those property owners have been notified and agreed. And we will be using the same material. If you have a concrete driveway, we're going to put back concrete. If you have asphalt, we're going to put back asphalt. If you've got something different, you're going to get the same, type of material back. As we discussed earlier, D&D is required to maintain access to the properties throughout construction. There will be some times where they have a paving machine or a milling machine directly in front of your home. That's part of road construction. It has to happen. They will notify you in advance when that's going to happen, and they do have a shuttle that they will, get people in and out of their homes when necessary. But we're hoping to minimize that to the maximum extent possible. Next slide. There are a lot of mailboxes within the project limits. A total of 279. Of those, we determined that 135 are likely to be in conflict with construction. And to do that, from the proposed back of curb, we assumed anything within 2 feet of the back of curb was going to be in conflict. So what we're going to do, those mailboxes that are in conflict will get temporary mailboxes during construction. Basically a 5-gallon bucket with concrete and a post. And the D&D will place that at your existing location. When it needs to be moved for their activities, they'll roll it out of the way. They'll do what they have to do, and then they'll roll it right back so that mail service will be continuous throughout the duration of construction. You can see we've got many different types of mailboxes out here: stone, brick, concrete, iron. The mailboxes that do have to be relocated, we're going to preserve to the maximum extent possible. But if one is damaged, it will be replaced with like, kind, and quality. So if you have a brick mailbox that has to be relocated and it cannot be moved in one piece, it happens. You can move them. Usually it doesn't work. They will replace it with the same material or type of material. And most importantly, we will not be doing community mailboxes. I don't know if y'all have talked to anybody that lives on Northwest Military. They're currently collecting their mail here at City Hall. We wanted to make sure that you were collecting your mail the same place you always do, in front of your home. So we did work with the post office, and they pushed back a little bit, but we pushed harder, and we're going to maintain existing mail service. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, we're not making significant drainage improvements, but we are reestablishing bar ditches. There are a couple of small culverts that we're putting in to help water get across the road and maintain natural drainage patterns. Where water is crossing over the road, we're going to put in concrete, similar to what we did on, I believe it's Bent Oak. We put in concrete pavement at the crossing there. We will be doing the same thing at several locations. And the culverts that we built in 2021 and the pavement work that we did at that time is going to remain. We designed the project to tie into that existing concrete we put in, so we're not having to redo something that was only done 2 years ago. Next slide. I guess question and answer time.
I see you have some flyers here with a barcode here or a cue card. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit?
So I did bring some of our flyers. This is generally what our notification flyer will look like. Kelly had mentioned there'll be door hangers. The little hole will hang them on your doorknob, and the bottom will have a tear off with phone numbers and this QR code. This QR code will take you directly to our website, and then there'll be updated information available on that as well as our phone numbers. It'll have my phone number and Paul's phone number on there available. I do have extra copies of this if anybody wants one. It's like,
Bill, we have a number of homes that have gates, front fencing with gates. How are they going to be contacted with the flyers and stuff like that? Are we going to put them in the mailboxes, on the mailboxes? How are we going to be doing that?
I haven't thought through that. Does anybody have any experience with that?
It's against federal law to open a mailbox. It's not yours without permission, whether you're in the city or not.
Exactly.
Yes, we don't use mailboxes.
I'm aware of that.
So for the water lines, if we're going to be shutting off your water, we try to actually just put it dead middle of the gate. So hopefully by the time you drive up to the gate, you're able to see a bright yellow flyer that's basically going to be hooked to your gate saying, hey, we're shutting off your water.
So I live on Wagon Trail. I think we're going to be first up in this process, and being first does not have advantages, I've found out. That's where you work out the kinks, and my yard's had a lot of kinks.
Okay.
Could I offer a suggestion that y'all put no through traffic signs on each end of Wagon Trail to highly discourage people driving down Wagon Trail that don't live on Wagon Trail? Because right now our street is a cut through for people that don't want to access military and want to get all the way to the end down by Starbucks and McAllister's. And it's bad enough with the people that live on Wagon Trail, much less people that are cutting through. The other issue right now we're having with Miller Brothers is when they cut a street or block access, you have no way to know until you drive 0.5 of a mile down the street to find out that you've got to turn around and go back. And that happens every day, several times a day, to my family, I'm sure other families. So we need a way to know, number one, that the street's blocked and we can't exit one way or another. And then two, we need to discourage through traffic for people that don't live on Wagon Trail or any of these other streets when they're under construction.
So through traffic kills our production, and it creates a liability. So when we set barricades up, we set them up staggered to where you actually have to drive through the course. We get to know the homeowners pretty quick and what vehicles they drive. And once you've driven through a couple of construction sites, if it's thoroughfare, you're going to find that it's not the way to go. We have what we call an exposure period. And the exposure period is when we rip the first road out, your existing road, and you're running on raw subgrade. So we try to minimize that and get you back on asphalt. That is typically the only time that you would be impeded through traffic. And with that, we'll work with the city and we'll work through notifications to make sure the residents understand where we are in that process. Ben?
I've got a safety question.
Yes, sir?
Actually, a statement. The city is probably getting really tired of hearing from us for the last 2 years. Your contractors managed to park a truck right there on Ingate Lane, where I've almost got hit 6 different times because you cannot see around that truck. How about not parking a truck there?
I'm sorry,
Yeah, so what's happening is, it's happening on Northwest Military Highway. It's probably going to happen in some of the areas here where you have an intersection that you're exiting out of a street onto another street, and they're working in proximity. A lot of the contractors' privately owned vehicles will be parked in the right-of-way there, as I know, as well as heavy equipment, including barricades, so that you're preventing traffic. And it's actually 2 or 3 times a week I get phone calls, and I'm personally calling, along with Brandon, to the supervisors over in TxDOT. It's in the TxDOT thing, saying, hey, would you move this truck? Would you move that car? Would you do that? Because people have a hard time when they're getting ready to pull out onto the road, looking left and right, and being exposed there.
Okay. We'll take that under advisement. Our guys are pretty good at doing this stuff, but I have no problem reiterating that at our internal pre-construction meeting, so I appreciate it.
You've been great when we called, you get it moved.
Yeah. Not these guys, because they're not the ones doing it.
We haven't started yet, but.
It's not your fault yet.
I got a question over here. For those walkers and runners, and I'm not a runner by any means, but do you want them to do their exercises, I guess, before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m.? Is that the case, or not at all for the 58-day period?
I never want to discourage anybody from exercising. Through that exposure period that we talked about, where we have that raw subgrade, that's when it's a little cautious, right? That's when there could be a potential for injury, because the road, we actually have to pulverize the existing subgrade. And if we go with the lime rate, just to tell you a little bit about that process, we have to pulverize a road. We're going to mix hydrated lime in there, which is going to look like it's snowed. We have to mill that. Then we compact it back for you to have access. We have to let it mellow for 24 to 48 hours. We have to come back, remix that, get a gradation test. Once we've passed our tests, we can compact it back, and then we can prime it and pave it. So that's our exposure period, and that's the part where traffic hurts us, and if we have a rain spell or something, that it makes it tough to get in and out. But at all times, we try to keep it two-wheel drive passable at all times. Yes, sir?
So to follow up on what you just described, you said traffic hurts and it takes 24 hours or so without rain. So what's the access like during that period of time?
It's rough. That's why.
No, but is it passable or is it not passable?
We will always maintain two-wheel drive passable access.
Okay, so there's not a time when we won't be able to get to our properties or leave unless there's something physically blocking.
There will be a time when we're actually applying the lime, because that you don't want to drive through.
And then when you are applying the lime, should we not be in our front yards?
It's hydrated. There's no safety hazard to you, but you wouldn't want to drive through it.
Okay.
We need time to get that processed. We're working with the city to make a change to where we can do cement stabilization in lieu of lime. We're waiting on the geotechnical report to advise us if that's permissible, but that will cut that period down, and we can get you back on the street quicker.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we shouldn't drive through it. What about walking? You know, if we walk all the time, would that be bad stuff to walk through?
Yes, sir. Don't wear your good shoes if you're going to walk through it.
Okay, it eats them up?
It's hydrated lime. I wouldn't recommend walking through it. When we're doing that process, it's best to avoid the street at that time.
Yeah. Okay. I just wonder what the effect is on the shoe. If it's half a shoe when I'm done, you know?
So my question is, do you control the equipment? I don't mean to drive it. Do you either own it or lease it? And are there people working, your employees, or are they subcontractors you hire?
So I'm not sure I understood the question, but if, do we sub that out or do we hire people? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, is it your own employees or equipment?
So for the cement stabilization or the subgrade, the milling, we do all that self-perform. We're going to do all the subgrade modification. Those are all my people. All the heavy equipment labor is my people. The paving, we sub out. Lone Star Pavers will be doing the asphalt paving. Yes, sir?
You mentioned the shuttle. What is the shuttle, like a golf cart?
It's a Polaris. It's pretty nice.
I'm on Fawn, my neighbor at 204, they have a real drainage problem. Is this one area that you're going to address?
We can look at the plans at your specific address when we do the breakout session.
Bill, is this a time to talk about Northwest Military, or should I save that for a different meeting?
You want to ask what the status on Northwest Military Highway is?
No, about the beautification along the street. I think
Yeah,
I
probably a
talked-
different meeting.
Okay.
But they are, we're going to do the best. We have a committee for beautification. We haven't made much progress, but we intended to work with TxDOT on it.
Related to that project, I understand they're going to kill the right turn lane coming off Military northbound onto Wagon Trail by the well.
Yeah, it will not be accessible, the southern part of the triangle.
Since Northwest Military is not going to be completed prior to our project starting with these gentlemen, are they going to kill that turn when this project starts?
I can look and see how that's coordinated and what the timing is.
Well, because however they're going to terminate that turn, I would think would play into how these gentlemen finish that off
Yeah.
up and to that point. Because you wouldn't want to retrofit.
Yeah, so we know, and the engineers have accounted for the portion that TxDOT's going to go from the Northwest Military Highway into that triangle.
Right.
And then our plans pick up from there moving forward. And I can't, Chris might be able to
But
explain
it
that
seems
more.
like it ought to be terminated as of the commencement of this project. Am I
So
not-
we accounted for the TxDOT improvements. We actually got their CAD files from them, and our project begins where their project ends. And so no matter who goes first at that particular intersection, we'll tie in together.
Okay.
So there won't be any rework. I mean, one starts, the other ends at the same location.
Okay, as long as it's been thought of, thanks.
Yeah.
Kelly, will there be any staging materials where material will be deposited, or is it all going to be just-in-time delivery of materials?
So, good question. So there will be no staged material in the roadway. When we mill, it'll be milled, and then there will be a conveyor putting it in the truck, and it'll be hauled off immediately. The only staging materials we will have will be some concrete forms when we start to reconstruct driveways.
Looks like that's the last of the questions. Bill, we've got 4 tables with people that are going to be at them, right?
Yeah, so I think we'll have the D&D over on the far side, and then we'll have the engineer next to him. Chris, you can go over there, and then Public Works will be over on the far side over there.
Also,
And-
if anybody wants a CPS gas residential service request form, I have it right up here, a copy for you.
Thank you all for coming out this evening. Looking forward to completing the project. It's going to be an adventure for the city of Shavano Park. Thank you all very much.